Hello and welcome to the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. I'm Amanda Butland, your host and intuitive life coach.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Embrace Balance, Discover Joy podcast. Today, my special guest is Dave Johnson. Dave, it's so great to have you on today.
Thank you, Amanda, for having me. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And before we start, I always like to ask my little icebreaker question. Would you mind would you mind sharing with us what activity or hobby brings you the most joy and why?
Well, that's a good question. I would say at this point, I like to spend a lot of time with my son doing activities. But as far as a personal activity, I'm very deep into spiritual learning, learning different practices, learning different cultures and different experiences. And I do a lot of reading in that area, listen to videos, basically just try to learn as much as I can. So I would say that's probably my number one hobby.
I love that. Yes, spirituality is one of those things that there's so much out there. And there for
Absolutely.
sure you can go down all sorts of rabbit holes on that. All right. So we're just going to dive right in. And I always like to find out from my guests, what has been your journey? How have you gotten to where you are today? Becoming a coach, a life coach. What has brought you to this point? Share with us your journey.
Wow, and it's a circuitous one at best. I think that's probably the best word for it. But I went to high school many years ago, back in the 80s. I went to high school in Hawaii, and from Hawaii, I became interested in the Navy, and I ended up going to college, and I studied liberal arts, communication, and political science. I had two majors. And the communication stuff was interesting to me. It was a lot about interpersonal and how to deliver a presentation. There was a lot of interesting things about that major, just in terms of getting through life and using it. And then I got selected for naval intelligence. So that's what I did in the military. And that is, they say death by a thousand cuts. It's like death by a thousand briefings. You literally brief all the time, every day, all day long, every day. So you get used to being in front of an audience, and taking sometimes complicated information and simplifying it in a way that people grasp it, remember it. The most important thing is they remember it. So from there, I went into corporate America, and I worked at a defense consulting firm for about a decade here in the DC area. And that was a business thing, business opportunity. It was fun. Um, got a little tired of it toward the end, and said, I need to do something. I want to do something with my life that has some impact. And that led me down the road of startups. And I got involved in a biomedical startup that I worked on for a very long time. It had some successes, it had some failures. But the main part of that was, can we create a solution that can help a lot of people? And through those three careers, being in the military, working with other veterans and other military members, service members, being in corporate America, and being in innovation startup America, I came across a lot of people. And seemingly the common theme for a lot of people that I've talked to professionally is, I just don't know exactly where I'm going, how I'm going to go there, what I'm going to do with my life. Like I don't like my job. I don't like my career. I don't want to do this anymore. There's a lot of complaints. And, through the years, I spent a lot of time trying to help people work through some of these, I don't want to say professional crises, but, kind of where am I crossroads? And when I found out about Ilkate, and I talked to Katya and I met some of the other team members, I'm like, this is something I've never done. This is intuitive coaching. This is a lot of listening. I've done a lot of talking, as I'm doing right now, but I haven't done a lot of listening. But I do have a sense that a lot of people that I've dealt with through the years and worked with, and if people have confided in me, there's probably something there, where this intuitive life coaching skill set could apply. And talking to a few friends of mine of late, everybody's like, hey, I just wish somebody would listen to me. Like nobody listens anymore. And everyone's distracted with phones and computers and busy schedules and everything else. So it's like a combination of helping people work through issues, for maybe a larger purpose, or maybe they just have an issue they want to try to resolve, but doing it from an empathetic point of view, listening, hearing them, and I would say give them a platform to actually be able to talk and be heard. Not necessarily results driven, like we have to have an answer at the end of this hour, but more they've got someone they can rely on that's going to listen to every detail of their story, their journey, challenges, struggles, etc. So that's what drew me to the program and to the field in general.
Mm, I love that. I love what you just said about how, people want to feel heard. And you're right with media and, people on screens all the time. And I even think this like sort of since COVID, right, where people aren't interacting as much as they used to, just hanging out without screens and just talking to each other and listening to each other. And I think you're right. There's this desire for people to be heard and just listen to and connect with people on a deeper level than that just feels sort of lacking more recently, right? It's just especially with phones all the time. People are on phones all the time. So I love that you say that. And I also did want to touch on what you said about sort of what brought you, like what got you here, which was that people oftentimes like feel like there's something missing, right? They're not sure, they're directionless, sort of they've sort of got the job, they're living life, but not feeling like they're actually living it, right? They're just sort of going through the motions. And so to be able to sort of help guide people to really what it is that they want to do. So I love what you're why you got here and what it is that you want to do. And maybe can you talk a little bit more about sort of that passion that you have to help others and that sort of that direction of maybe helping people with, finding what it is that they want to do, sort of finding themselves.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that my experience was, a lot of situations, not all of them, but a lot of situations throughout my professional career, I was successful. I was got the awards, military awards, corporate awards, bonuses, promotions, a bigger office, and even bigger office, and even bigger office. I mean, it's on and on. But I kept feeling like something was missing. And I do believe, in my own opinion, that the secret to happiness is making the people around you successful. I really believe that. I think that that's a core happiness. You might be happy for a little while about a new purchase or a new promotion or a new job or new relationship, whatever it may be. And relationships are different, but I think the long-term happiness is creating opportunities and success for others, or at least facilitating that or trying to help, not overdoing it, not being involved in everyone's lives trying to help them all the time, but as they need it and as they want it. I think if you can provide that kind of a catalyst for that, that's a positive thing. So I think that the desire to help people comes from, maybe my own understanding of how unhappy I was at different points in my life when I should have been on cloud nine and I wasn't, because I didn't, it was like, yeah, I've got everything. I've got money, I've got status, I've got a title, I've got it all. And this isn't really making me very happy. And why is that?
Mm.
And a lot of that, I think, ties into purpose. Now, that may be an overused word, but in Japan, there's a concept called Ikigai, which is really looking at like people, and there's several books on it I've read of late, And it's finding your purpose, finding what really makes you happy, what you would love to do every day. Get out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, and start immediately. No procrastinating kind of thing. And when people find that zone, and it's not necessarily a career, it can be a craft, it can be a hobby, it can be, but it's something that is unique to the person that they are extremely good at and extremely devoted to. And finding that part of your life, discovering that. It's not always obvious, but discovering it. The authors of these books on Ikigai were like, they believe, has a lot to do with longevity, lifespans in Japan. People live longer, and just statistically, and are happier, and are more connected to who they really are. I do believe in the West, we've lost some of that, and things are more, status is defined. And I think a person that like a potential coaching client, for example, a dream for me would be to be instrumental in helping them discover this purpose, this ikigai, this thing that really drives them, by just asking the question. And I don't think that enough people, as we talked about a minute ago, those other people don't really get enough opportunity to be heard and to really feel risk-free in articulating things that they actually care about. There's a little censoring going on, frankly. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to open that can of worms, because that might sound weird, or that might not be appreciated or understood by the audience. So I think that all that connects to, in what I view the coaching field, intuitive coaching field, as. And I believe that being able to help people kind of continually every day, almost like, what'd you do today? Well, today I helped 3 people. I talked to 3 clients, and again, not necessarily solving all the problems in one sitting, but just making progress, and knowing that skills I learned and experience I've had did help in helping these people. So I think that's my driver.
I love that. I love that concept of the Ikigai, right? Of finding what it is that is your sort of your passion and your purpose, and living that. And I also wanted to touch on what you said around how people want to be heard, but they're sometimes afraid to open up and actually share what their deepest desires are, because, like you said, they feel of maybe afraid to share that because it might be a little bit weird, a little bit different. And it makes me just think of sort of, Western culture, where it's sort of like, there's the, well, I don't know if you want to call it the American dream, right? Like, get married, have a good job, have a house, and have 2.5 kids. And
And the white picket fence, Amanda, don't forget
oh,
that one
that's
too.
right. I forgot about the white picket fence. Yes, and you need the white picket fence. And like you said, like in your own case, you achieved all those things and you weren't happy. Because we're told that this is supposed to make us happy, but when you're living this sort of life that you're told you should have, you sort of stifle or stuff down your own desires and wants, and you sort of lose touch with who you even are, right? The person
Yep.
that maybe when like the person that you probably were when you were a kid, when you had those big dreams, that gets sort of stuffed down somewhere, whether it's like through school, in school, by parents, family expectations, whatever it might be. And then getting to the age where they've achieved all those things, and then they're like, well, now I don't feel happy, and what happened?
You wake up from the dream and realize maybe in some ways it's a nightmare. It's like, how did
Right.
that happen? How did I
Hmm.
get from? Yeah, I know exactly. And I was going to touch on that a bit with the suppressing. Almost, I don't think suppressing is the right word, but it's almost like what works to drive someone to success isn't, you can't bring up, it's like these credentials and these skills and these resume items and these contacts and these projects and whatever it is. And you say, oh yeah, I've got this passion for reading, spiritual books or something. It's like, oh, you can leave that last part out because that's not part of the, and so people do filter. And success, you have to sort of stay on point, stay on target. And I do think people lose themselves in that. And it's the conformity. Again, this is my opinion, but it's a conformity to a system that's been established for them. And you touched on that. It's like, this is what's expected. This is what you're going to do. And this is what you need to do to be successful long term. And getting lost in that, years and years go by, and tons of promotions and more money and more status and more everything, but never was a person's purpose or passion or goals or things they really love. Those things really aren't rewarded in the same way. So they don't get done. They don't get focused on. And then people wake up and they're like, wow, I've got it all. And yet I feel like I have nothing. So that's something that give people a safe space. I think clients potentially a safe space to talk about these things openly and say, hey, there's something I am passionate about. And I might ask the question. It's like, what's something, if you had unlimited money and unlimited time, what's something you would do? Not necessarily have, because that's a bit of a loaded question, because it's like, well, I would buy myself a mansion. No, what would you do? What would you do with your day? And then you're kind of starting to get right on the edge there of like, okay, that's, it's like, I really like making floor arrangements. Okay. Now, what do you like about that? And that goes a little bit deeper. And it's like, well, I really like it because I like to create beautiful pieces of art that are unique. And other people gain a lot of joy by having these pieces. Okay. And then you're starting to get closer and closer. And I only say this stuff because it's what I read in this books. It's really digging in a bit about what would you do with, again, unlimited resources. Probably wouldn't be, unless someone loves their job, it wouldn't necessarily be the job they're in. Right. I want to stay in this job and move up 5 more rungs in the ladder. Probably not the case.
Right.
So that's where I think the coaching blends in with passion and all that.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that example that you provided with the floral arrangement, right? Because the almost the end point that you got to was, or that you read in the book was that creating the beautiful bouquets or flower arrangements results in providing other people joy, which sort of goes back to what you mentioned earlier about your reason for doing it, is that, or what your definition of happiness was that, bringing joy to others or serving others, providing something to others where they receive joy from. So I love sort of that we came around like sort of full circle right there.
It's a good assessment there, good analysis. But yeah, it's something that hits home to me whenever there's an opportunity to make someone's life better, like do something, even an encouraging word, just degree of kindness. There's a lot of competition. A phrase that I've come up with lately that it's not really mine, but I sort of took it on. It's competition energy. And people don't realize it, but I do this myself. I find you're competing. You're like, you want to get to Starbucks a little. I live in DC, so it's like that, and it's naturally the environment for that. But I want to get to Starbucks a little faster because I can get in line quicker, so I can get to work faster, so I can. And you don't even realize why you're in a hurry so much, and why, what it is you're trying to achieve at the moment, why that's so important that has to be rushed. And part of that process and when you kind of unpack that a bit, you're like, well, why am I in such a hurry? What am I racing? What's the race? Why am I racing against all these other people? Are they competitors? Or are they just other people trying to do the thing they're trying to do too? So it's almost a mindset shift when you start to look at creating joy for others. But I think it's a reverberating effect where you're creating joy for yourself too. So it's like, hey, you feel good about doing something for someone else. And there is a little bit of a motivation. It's like, hey, I feel good about myself for creating that for that person. And I think that reciprocity is probably what drives a lot of people into fields where there's a degree of service, like they want to do something for others. It's that's probably a fairly decent assessment of why that is, why people do that.
Yeah. I love that. I do want to start to wrap up because this has been a really, really great conversation, but we're coming close to time. And before we wrap up, I did want to ask you one final question. If there's any final message that you'd like to share with our audience today, any parting words for today?
I'll be brief. I talked a lot. I would say just asking yourself that question, what would I do if I had unlimited resources? What would I do? What would my day look like? What would my life look like? And starting from there, and then maybe articulating some of that to close friends and family. But this is something I've been thinking about a lot, and it's something that interests me just to get their feedback. And obviously, people that are low risk, you don't want to get into arguments, but just something, I think that would be a starting point, just to kind of look at, just ask yourself the question and then, really think about it and sit on it for a while, sit with it. It doesn't have to be a solution. It might be a process, multiple step process, but that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I love the question. It's a great question. And maybe, you'll discover something new about yourself when you actually answer it, like really dig deep and answer it for real. All right. Well, thanks again, Dave, for being on with me today. It's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
I invite you to subscribe to the Embrace, Balance, Discover Joy podcast and join our community. If you feel inspired by what you hear, please leave a review and share this podcast with others who might benefit. And remember, it's never too late to embrace balance and discover joy in your life. Stay tuned for our upcoming episodes filled with inspiring stories and valuable insights. Until next time, take care and be kind to yourself.